what the problem is on us. I'm not in my answer. I'm give it in the yes, on Madame in China, there is one. What they tell us, you know, so not to the what they tell us, budget what budget the showman. No, don't see not yet, don't budget or tonight. Charlie, or this sort of family, how much or tea, or thing, or the that is what I buy. She was in the run. Or the sort of take what I want, but see the reason for the sort of achieve. Don't have it, something. Don't have one in the bomb reason to run.
Now, next, imagine that your mother has now become old and frail. Her eyesight has gone. She has become blind. She can't even cook and prepare food for herself. And she's now kind of like unable even to pull the covers over her body, so she doesn't even have any warm blankets on the bed. And she's racked with intense pain and suffering of the sickness of old age. And on top of that, because she is old and frail, she is actually being kind of mistreated and made fun of, mocked. And then she is experiencing the suffering of intense, the suffering of aging and the suffering of being on the verge of dying. But this life that is like a dream, she has wasted her whole life, been exhausted just in this delusion of this dreamlike life. And now she is aged, and now she is terrified because she is going to be going off to the next life, and she has no idea what to do, no idea where to go. It is like she is facing the inevitable death, but she has nobody there to help her, no protector. She is completely alone and terrified. And actually, this is really the suffering of the human realm and the higher realms that all humans and the God realm experience. For example, the human realm is characterized by the 8 types of suffering. And like Jidsen Milarepa said, the rich suffer from having, and the poor suffer from not having. Whether you have or you don't have, there is only suffering here. And so in this way, basically the human beings suffer in this way, but there's not a single being in the human realm that, again, has not been our own mother in previous lives. And now seeing their suffering, again, it gives rise to this unbearable, really unbearable compassion. And because now they are at the precipice, the point of passing from this dreamlike existence into the future life for which they are unprepared and terrified. And so think of the suffering of all the human beings and the suffering of the jealous God realm. Jealous God beings, or Asuras, are actually said, the suffering in this realm is called the suffering of fighting and warfare or conflict. And it is actually said that the suffering of the jealous God's realms fighting is worse than the suffering of the reviving hell, because that's the degree of the intensity that they suffer in that realm. And then thinking like the Deva realm, the long-lived God's realm, like they have temporary pleasures and happiness of the God's realm. And so the problem is they become so enraptured in the joy or the pleasures of the God's realm that they don't even sense that there is suffering. And so when the stay in the God's realm is up and their allotted lifespan there is at its end, then it is said that the suffering of the God's dying experience is worse than all the suffering of the 6 realms combined, because they are going to be falling from the highest place, and then they know already, they can see their future rebirth. And since they have wasted all their virtue in the experience of the bliss and pleasures of the God's realm, if they do not have the support of previous virtuous karmas, then they have nowhere to go but to the lower realms. And in fact, they can see ahead of time where they are going to go, but they cannot prevent it. And so the suffering of the slow dying process of the God's realms is so completely unbearable because they have to suffer for a very long time just experiencing that inevitable impending fall from the God's realm that they know. And the suffering of death, it says to take 7 days in the God's realm, but if we were to calculate that in the human years, many, many human years worth of suffering, just the dying experience of the God's realm. It means they have to fall from a very high place. They know they have to fall to the lower realms. And their suffering really is excruciating. In fact, it is unbearable. And so think about this in this way, and remember that all of the beings of the 6 realms, that from beginningless time in the samsara until now, they have all been our parents, our own mothers. And there's not one that has never been our mother. But now our mothers are experiencing this kind of intense suffering. And thinking in this way, then actually they have no idea what to do. They don't know right from wrong. They don't know that they have to accumulate virtue. And they don't know how to practice virtue. And so endlessly and uninterruptedly, they could keep creating more and more suffering for themselves by becoming completely caught up in non-virtuous karma. And so in this way, they create like this endless, uninterrupted suffering, like a madman that is like attacking himself, like a madman, like a crazy person that is just helplessly harming him or herself. And this is like, for example, the moth that is helplessly drawn to the flame of the butter lamp and then basically sends himself to his own demise. This is what all beings in samsara are like, all of these mother sentient beings. And so this is how we have to think and meditate to cultivate this compassion. And remember that there is not a single being in any of the realms, the higher realms or the lower realms, that has not been our own mother. And so thinking in this way then give rise to compassion.
接下来我们来原想自己的母亲如今已渐渐衰老，身体虚弱，眼睛视力慢慢不行，甚至眼盲了，不能看见东西，也不能自己煮食，甚至在冷的时候都没有办法去找毯子来覆盖自己，受到极大的痛苦。而且因为他们自己的状况呢，让大家来羞辱他们，耻笑他们，他们正在受极大的痛苦。那么在死亡之际呢，受之前之际都受到极大的痛苦。那么在他们的这一生，就好像如梦似幻一般，整个一生都浪费掉了。他们今天已经衰老了，他们感到内心非常的惶恐，非常的害怕。他们不知道下一步该是怎么走，下一辈子要跑去哪里，没有不知道说将会到哪里受生，无端的无边的这种恐惧。这个是在人道的受苦。那对于人道的受苦，弥勒日巴祖师也讲到说，未得之，就是对于那些已经有那些富有的人呢，他们的苦是来自于他们的有，因为他们很怕失去。对于那些贫穷的人，他们的苦来自于没有，因为他们就是没有这些东西，也就是我们中国人讲的常常患得患失。那想到这些众生呢，在过去世没有一个不是我的母亲，如此一来，我们是不是会不由自主的升起那个对他们升起强烈的悲心呢？所以这是有关于人道的苦。至于修罗道的苦，是来自于嫉妒心的。那在我们人间，在人与人之间往往有一些争斗，可是在阿修罗道，在修罗道里面的争斗是极度强烈过我们人道的这些争斗的。那么他们在这种旋转的这种地狱里面，在这种争斗嫉妒的这边里面 继续的受苦，这个是修罗道他们的苦。至于天道的苦，有些人可能会觉得说，如果说在长寿天是无比的快乐，有苦吗？其实，在天道甚至在长寿天呢，他们的快乐也是短暂的。那么当他处在快乐的这个阶段的时候，他没有办法察觉到这个苦的本质。可是当他寿命将要尽的时候，他的所受的痛苦是所有六道的痛苦综合起来还更加的苦。他有一种感觉将从高处这样堕下来，他自己知道自己即将尽，那么所有的功德他都已经浪费掉了，他没有再办法往上走，只能往下堕，知道没有办法避免，可是没有办法忍受这种痛苦，知道说自己即将死了，这种痛苦是非常可怕的。据记载，那个天人寿将尽的时候，7天前他就开始知道，可是天上的7日在人间是非常的长久的，他是没有办法能够忍受这种苦。在如此一来，我们能够观察、省思所有六道的众生的苦。这些六道的众生在过去无一不是我母。那我今天我的母亲，自己的母亲正在受苦，他们不知道该怎么样做，不知道怎么样来造善，可是因为他们的业的轮转，他们轮回呢继续造恶，继续让他们受苦。这种情况就好像飞蛾扑火一样，当你点一个灯的时候，在晚上点一个灯，蛾呢自然会往灯那边扑过去。那这个是一种自杀的这种，就是说不由自主会让自己堕入更大痛苦的，没有办法避免的这种苦。所以这个飞蛾扑火，这个就像众生继续在那个轮回里面轮转受苦的道理是一样的。那不管是说今天他们受生在善道，或者是受生在恶道，在过去世无一不是我的母亲，我们能够不升起想要救他们，想要把他们带他们远离痛苦的心，这种心不会产生吗？
Once you have really cultivated the compassion in your mind stream and really kind of gotten some degree of a cultivation of this quality of compassion, it is said that with your compassion strong in your mind, that for the benefit of others, even if you were to go into the hell realm, that you would experience it like a young prince going into a pleasure garden. It would not be experienced as painful for you, because basically, because of the compassion, you would have no hindrance to your own happiness. And this comes about because of the compassion is the root of Mahayana, the root of the great vehicle. But however, if your compassion is only as shallow as your mouth and as mere words, then that is not really a true bodhisattva. And as long as it's just at the level of words and at the level of the lip service, then it also isn't genuine. So also it is said that if you only meditate on emptiness and you do not cultivate compassion, then you will fall to the lower realms. But also, on the other hand, if you only focus on compassion and you do not cultivate emptiness realization or the view of emptiness, then you will not be able to be free from samsara. You will still remain in samsara. So therefore it is said that we must cultivate emptiness and compassion, non-dual, inseparable. Also another saying is, for the one who believes things are really existent, they go to the higher realms. For the one who believes things are non-existent, they go to the lower realms. So this refers to the view of existence or non-existence. Either way, it keeps you in samsara. And many benefits are spoken of in the sutras, in the scriptures of the Buddha about the benefits of compassion. For example, it says if you have compassion, it is as though you are holding all the Buddhas like in the palm of your hand. So these are some examples of the benefits of compassion.
那么，当你在心事中长养悲心的时候，有一种说法说，当你心中如果悲心非常的强烈到，为了利益众生，虽然你进下地狱呢，你就有如一个年轻的公主进入花园一般，是不会受苦的。那这种悲心，这种精神，要解救众生的这种精神，就是一种大圣精神的起源。那可是，如果我们的悲心只停留在我们的嘴巴上，在我们的言语上，不是真正从内心出来，不是一种真正的这种菩萨的这种悲心的话，这个是没有太大用处的，只是像人家讲舌灿莲花一样，只是听起来很好听，没有实质的。如果说有些人只修空性，但却没有悲心，不修悲心的话，那么这些人将来是会堕恶道的。可是如果一些行者他只修悲心，却没有修空性的话，他会继续在轮回里面受生的。所以我们应该要空悲两者都要双修共修。对于那些具有常见的人呢，他们是会往生善道的。至于那些怀有断见的人呢的行者，他们是会往生恶道的。但是这种常见或断见，不管你受生善道或者是恶道，都是继续在轮回里面流转的。那所以在经典里面有提到说，我们的悲心我们修持我们的悲心，就好像把那个我们的那个的佛放在我们手掌中一般，这样子珍贵。
真的，咱人家的这趟讲的各种讲的你多啊，这个说他们这边那对啥你这个光是啦，这趟做这趟说对啥给这些大家嘛，说这他最初就有了这些人嘛，说老从他们这里对啥你是光是啦，因那做这趟说就有这是话这趟你嘛这光的就进这个这个这说有这些空气强说过的，他空气强光把意思，或者空气强。空气差从呢，因为这内部的，做这边新部的，空气嘛，像那个地是就接那这，这里可拉入的，我这就这吧，我这其实真的人家这种，这趟开清楚这种的，可是你点钟他们上级呀，人家清楚点，这上级有的，可是你点钟嘛，那啥都加修加，这里时间多，这里还不会，今那用时间呢，这里朋友之间呢，两面得查的有嘛的， 叫公司为了嘛，那晓得学着是做给，但那是做家的，是公家写了接受那边。我真的这公的嘛，这登记可惜，这登记写了要不穷用嘛的，点这个吧，点这，点这公这个点这要不晓得点这这要不从这个嘛的，晓得真的公拍些单啊现着在这上的，现着在这，但这了现在这了那啥的没先把人过，真正都是当啥的。我真正啊，实际没没啥阶段之后呢，这个人在啦，把茶空中，就是做空中，就是嘛，就怕做卡把技呢，真正啊破家，真正他公把做个路上公怕拍的哇，我真茶铺怕拍30，真的怕拍30的，3阶段的，这空茶铺听到是啦，现在是汤咖阶段，我这现在是汤咖那个那啥重要的，一当把老板嘛的意思，我这里面。今年是汤法的，那在恰铺嘛松是，恰对吧？铺嘛松上，我发现从今年是汤法的恰是的哇。他从不针对啊，他们那在这个呢是讲嘛被他就来上空被突胖的哇。你把什么在当中嘛？那么什么是旅游是？那现在没上这个嘛的是，我是开嘛的是。身边都是变我们是年纪，我嘛的这样能看呀，他妈的有嘛的，变我们是年纪辛苦学从多工。人家情况是冲的，这基地的真的见下毛我说了，这就新疆到那人家情况中，这这就其中是不讲那咱从嘛上一肉中的，王八那种，这是通的，我是同学我同，叫这种通的，这就其的，这你那种吧，你上嘛还差呢，真的交代情况都把我吓了，我这人家情况工具，这就偏头的啥？这也当他们我写谁就清楚。我这节呢，真的这些把是弄个碰出去，也啥嘛做的，这碰出可能学着是做呀，你们学着是去，那在家不用写了干嘛做方面，这他碰出去也啥干嘛做的，我把出也啥去的。
So compassion, actually both loving kindness and compassion, in terms of like the amount of time that we should be focusing our practice on meditating and focusing on this. Traditionally in our 3-year retreat format, we are given 2 weeks to focus only on the loving kindness and compassion. But that's in the context of the way that the time is divided in the 3-year retreat. But really, it's not so much about how much time you apply, but rather whether you get it or not. For example, like the whole point of giving time to meditate and cultivate loving kindness and compassion is so that it sticks in the mind, so that it actually really is blooming and born in the mind stream. So if you meditate on compassion and loving kindness in one day and you get it and it sticks in the mind, then you got it. The whole point is that when I say it born in the mind stream, that expression in Tibetan, born in the mind stream, what I mean to say is that it becomes natural, second nature to you. Like for example, we say it shouldn't be something that you have to effortfully try to meditate. It should be a natural habit, a natural kind of second nature. And when it arises naturally without effort, then that means that it's born in the mind stream. That means that it's sticks, because otherwise, sure, you can kind of take a little time here and there and meditate on loving kindness and compassion, and maybe you have some sort of superficial level of these qualities arising, but if they're not really truly born in the mind, and if they're not truly ingrained yet, then they're just temporary, and then you can lose them again. So this is why it's important to make sure that when we cultivate loving kindness and compassion, really that we cultivate it to the extent that it becomes like this second nature to us, like a habitual pattern, a habitual nature. Again, the importance of compassion. Jigten Sumgun said that it was compassion that kind of opened the door for him to become a Buddha, really, or for all beings to awaken. It is really in reliance on compassion that Buddhahood is achieved. Because Jigten Sumgun, there was a time in his life story where he was stricken with a very serious illness, leprosy actually. And at the time that he got sick from leprosy, Pahamudra had already passed into parinirvana. And although he did have his Dharma brothers and sisters, his Dharma siblings, but they didn't pay him much attention because of his disease. They kind of stayed away. And so he tried to establish some interdependence to kind of see if he could overcome this illness, but he wasn't successful. So finally he was kind of a bit despondent, and he realized, okay, well, I suppose now is the time for me to die. And he thought about it, and he thought to himself, well, I've got this, contagious leprosy. If I just die here in the midst of all these other people, then they will have to deal with my body and they could get contaminated. So I'll go to a solitary place like a cave or a mountain cave where there are no people around. And then that way when I die, it won't disturb other people. It won't become, an issue. So he faced in the direction to this peak of a mountain where there was this little cave. And he went there basically to die. And his plan was that he was going to do pulla for himself and then just pass away there. And when he got to the cave, he saw there was an image, like a painting of Jenrezik Avalokiteshvara. And he thought for a minute, and he thought, I have to remember that this disease is not because of my deity. I have to remember to prostrate. I haven't even prostrated down to this deity, to Jenrezik. So he prostrated before this image of Jenrezik. And then he thought to himself, and he said, well, I have all of the heart instructions from my Lama, so I know that when I die I don't have to go to the lower realms because I'll be okay. I have the profound instructions. And then he thought, but what about all of those sentient beings that have to die without these instructions? They're helpless because they are blinded by the obscuration of ignorance. And then he thought of them, he thought of their predicament, and how sad it was that he thought they don't have these profound instructions that I have. And at that moment, then intense and overpowering compassion arose in his heart for all of the sentient beings. So much so that he just kept weeping and weeping, tears streaming down his face. And because of the force of that intense compassion, his illness naturally left him. And in fact, it left him like snakes actually crawling out of his body. And then he was completely healed and recovered after that. And then